We're on the record. Yes, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Ms. Roxana, we think we have our quorum here. If nobody's going to call in, we can go ahead.
I think
Where's
we
Frank?
can. Yeah, Frank had a situation come up at home, so he was going to try real hard, and sometimes usually he drives out the morning of. So I'm going to, if it's okay, go ahead and try the conference line just in case, but he has not emailed me back. We're going to have the conference line open for the 10 o'clock session because we have two board members that are going to be able to participate electronically. Okay, so Frank has not called us. We'll go ahead and proceed, and we've got enough for the complaint committee. So notice was given on the website regarding this April 9th Cosmetology and Barber complaint committee meeting, and this was posted on April the 4th. Hello, Frank. You are so welcome.
Hi, Frank.
Thrilled to see you.
In.
I was just
Nice
freaking
haircut, Frank.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning.
And I will turn it over then to Pam Spicer, legal counsel, the litigating counsel for this board.
Good morning, everyone. I'm assuming everyone's had a chance to look at the legal report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. I do want to note on number 16, in case there was any question about what the consumer complaint was about, because I usually include that, it was regarding a bad result from a manicure. And then at some point I will want to bring your attention to number 40. And I can do that now unless you all have other questions.
I have a question about 31 and 32. A hot wax pot was found in the salon, but they weren't licensed. They were not licensed for waxing services. So there's nothing that we can do unless we actually see that service being performed. Is that correct?
Correct. There was no service being performed, and of course, if I was to attempt to take this to a hearing, I may have an issue with proof. So that's why we would do a letter of warning at this time.
Was it a nail type salon, or was it something that is outside
On
the
31
scope?
and 32, yes.
Okay.
Are those the same salon?
On 30, I'm not going to say for sure. I would have to look into that. 32 is a shop. 31 is the individual. So I'm going to make an assumption that those are related, but I don't know for sure. But I can check on that during the break and report to the full board.
Have any questions? I appreciate it. The report looked great this month.
On number 40, the reason I want to bring it to your attention is because the board had voted for revocation of this school and received another complaint. Then the issue is now the school is closed. I have spoken to the executive director for the school on multiple occasions. He has also sent a letter in with a copy of this, well, not a copy, the original school license. We did send a consent order for a voluntary revocation. However, now that the school is closed, the board that he answers to related to the school says, why do we need to sign this consent order if the school is closed? In order to be consistent in the past as it relates to shops or other things, we have closed and flagged when a shop has closed. So to be consistent, it would appear that we would need to, my recommendation would need to be that we would close and flag as it relates to this school. But I do want to let the board know, because I did not include it in my recommendation, my plan is to send an inspector out unannounced to ensure that the school is closed. But we do not have any information. I spoke to Roxana. The school has not submitted any hours in a couple of months. So these complaints that came in, let's say, a couple of months ago. So there's been no activity at the school, and we haven't had any additional complaints. Now, obviously, if we close, flag, send the inspector comes back, school is closed, then there's nothing more for us to do. If we get another complaint that someone's attending school there, it's obviously going to be very suspect because all indications to us is that the school is closed.
And hours and where to
Not that
go.
I'm aware of.
So far, we haven't received anything. So they either had a heads up that they were closing and all got their transfer documents released to test, or to this date, we haven't gotten any. They did not have a high, obviously, student registration toward the end either. So that's the plus.
Correct. I think there may have been only 13
Yeah,
students
you're
at
right
one
on.
point the last time I had asked. In addition, just so you all are aware, the issues were concerning sanitary conditions and teachers not being present, but of course the executive director's response to me is the school's not open and operating, so obviously there would not be instructors present, and the sanitary conditions that exist, he's saying, why would we fix those? Because there are no students. We are not operating as a school. So he's not necessarily saying that, maybe there is a bathroom that doesn't work or something, but he's saying if we're not operating as a barber school, then there would be no reason to fix any issues that do exist.
We feel like he's operating as a barber shop or a salon.
Oh, not that I have
Okay.
any knowledge
Okay.
of. Of course, we're going to send the inspector out unannounced, and if that inspection comes back with anything different than what the executive director has told me, that would result in a new complaint being opened. And obviously, my recommendation would be to revoke the license, because then I would have proof that either they're still operating or something different is going on than what he's told me. Because I don't have any information that this is operating at all.
Would it make any difference whether they sign off or not on future dealings with, as far as on the record? Or what we have in-house is enough to deal with later? You know what I'm saying?
Well, if I send the inspector out and there's proof that they're operating as a school, we would be starting on a new complaint that they've
No,
are operating.
I'm not sure I made myself clear. If in the future they want to reopen something, shouldn't there be some kind of historical data stating that this was past activity?
It'll be closed and flagged, but they are not signing a consent order agreeing to a voluntary revocation, because I can't proceed on a revocation if the school is closed. So that complicates getting a document signed, a consent order, or going to a hearing if the school is closed.
Enough meat for you to challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
If I get to a hearing. Now, if the inspector goes out and there's an issue, then we can just start over. But it would be closed and flagged. If they attempted to reopen, the inspector would go out. And, of course, they would have to clear up any sanitation issues that exist in order to reopen.
Right. Well, I would just recommend then we take council's recommendation on this case.
Other questions? I think we'll sit on those recommendations then. So, Ms. Pamela, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Is there anything else needs to come to the legal committee? Nope. I believe that'll be all then. Okay.
Thank you, Betty. We will be back at 10 o'clock.
Looks like we have a nice crowd that's joined us this morning. I think we're going to have probably a couple of schools here, it looks like. If
Okay.
This meeting of the State Board of Cosmetology and Barber Examiners is called to order. I believe we have a quorum, so we will start with a roll call.
Thank you and good morning. This is the Cosmetology and Barber Examiners Board meeting. It is Monday, April 9th, and we are starting at 10:05. Notice was given of this meeting on the board's website on April 4th, and so I will do a roll call, and we do have two board members participating through our conference call line. Ms. Kelly Barger, not here. Mr. Jimmy Boyd, not here. Ms. Anita Charlton, she may join us in a minute, but for now, we don't have her here. Ms. Nina Coppinger,
I'm here.
Mr. Frank Gambusa,
Here.
Mr. Ron Gillihan,
Here.
Ms. Brenda Graham,
Here.
Ms. Judy McAllister, Ms. Patricia Richmond,
Present.
Ms. Becky Russell,
Here.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield.
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Amy Tansley. Here. Ms. Wybeck Ranger.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum and two participating telephonically. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, one of the first orders of business that we like to do is to recognize our visitors and guests. We've got a hall full today, so thank you all for coming. I know that Cordova High School from Memphis is here, and Austin's Beauty School is here. Is that the right name? Austin Beauty? Thank you for coming down. It's really good to see all you participate in the board meetings. Do we have any other schools that are represented? Please stand and tell us who you are.
The Master Academy of Barbering on Knoxville.
Thank you for making the drive. Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am. Good to see you folks again. Again, thank all of you folks for coming and taking part. Hopefully you'll find some of this to be interesting. We need to have an approval of the March 5th, 2018 minutes. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions? Do we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Telephone.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Ms. Roxanne, I believe it's up to you.
Thank you. We are on to our appearance before the board. This is the last board meeting where we will have legislative updates currently through the session. So I will turn it over to our attorney, Sherelle Hooper. And I did pass out in paper one of the bills that, just due to time constraint, did not make it on the iPads. That is Amendment 015648. It is an amendment to House Bill number 2059. The others are all on your iPads, including everything that's been presented so far this year. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
I wanted to provide you all with an update on the bills that are currently active related to this program. The first bill we discussed at the last meeting was House Bill 1809. That bill is currently assigned to the General Subcommittee of the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee, and it is no longer moving forward. The second bill, HB 2551, it has been assigned to the Business and Utilities Subcommittee in the House, and the it's been referred to the Senate Commerce and Labor Subcommittee in the Senate, and it has not been moving, and so that bill is not active at this time. The next bill is House Bill 1483, and this bill, it actually was in the Senate, and it was referred to the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee, and it failed in the Business and Utilities Committee back in early March, and so that particular bill is no longer moving at this time. The next bill, House Bill 1630, it has actually been received for passage and referred to the Calendar and Rules Committee, and that's the sunset bill. The next bill is currently active. It has been re-referred to the Senate Committee, the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee calendar, and an amendment was filed on this particular bill very recently, and this is the bill that deals with the requirement for high school diplomas on the Barber side. And so that particular bill is active and is back in the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee at this time. It's not actually been placed on the calendar, but it's been re-referred to that committee.
What's that number?
This is House Bill 2059.
The one that deletes the high school education for barber instructors?
Yes, that's the particular bill, and a new amendment was filed, and so it essentially does that, and then it changes the continuous years requirement so that it's not 3 continuous years, but it's 3 years within a 10-year period, and so that's what that particular bill pertains to, and it is currently active. So if you all want to follow up on that, you can. I think the information is on your iPads. We also have House Bill 2546, and that particular bill has been taken off notice in the House for the Business and Utilities Subcommittee, and so it is currently not moving at this time. And you can find information about that. That was done on March 13th. And so there's been no activity since then, and that one's not moving right now. And the final bill is the generally applicable apprenticeship bill. That's House Bill 2537. That bill has actually passed in the Senate as amended on April 5th. And in the House, it is on the Calendar and Rules Committees. It's been referred to that committee. An amendment was filed on this late last week. And in essence, this particular amendment would make it such that if this passes as amended, as it passed in the Senate, this law would not be applicable to this board. And so essentially, because you all have rules that exist related to apprenticeship, it would not require you to be subject to this law and create a separate apprentice program. So that is how that amendment changes the bill, and if it passes, that's how it could affect the program. And
Because if it passes, it wouldn't have any impact.
if it passes as amended, there are currently 3 different amendments, but the latest one, if it passes as amended, as it passed in the Senate, in the House, and that is the final bill, then it would not be applicable to this program. Are there any questions?
I have a question about House Bill 2059, because I was on the phone this morning with one of my state reps, one of the state senators, and he told me that bill was done, that it wasn't going anywhere. It failed in the House, I know that. And I had voiced my opinion to several legislators that I was against the bill because it does away with a high school education for instructors. And I didn't feel like any individual that is a teacher instructing barbers and cosmetologists and everything that is covered in our field. I said at the very least, they should have a high school education or the GED requirement. And I actually watched the video in the Senate when it passed 5-4. And the senator from our area, Senator Bale presented it to the committee. This is so interesting to watch this because they have so many things that come through there and they just reel them off as fast as they can. And they hear hair and they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. But Senator Bale presented it and I did not like the way he presented it. And then Bo Watson on the committee said, I think the issue here is instructors, not a cosmetologist or a barber, but is in the instructors in this field. And I was glad he clarified that, but it still passed 5-4 in the Senate committee. And then it went to the House and it failed in the House. and now it's back to Senate something or other. But he told me this morning that it wasn't going anywhere. I just wondered if I need to be squeaky wheel still.
I think that our updates are as of last Friday, and this is what is current on the legislature's web page as of this morning. Looks like it's been re-referred to the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee calendar, and on the House, it's been re-referred to calendar and rules. That's as of March 29th. And so at this time, I don't have any additional information on this particular bill to provide, but that's the current status of it. And
Okay.
It was recently amended, and so I think you have a copy of the amendment if you want to see what's actually changed with the latest amendment.
That paper amendment, that is the one. It's the only thing that we put in front of you in paper.
So the amendment's by a different sponsor, I guess.
It appears it is. It appears it is because I have that the bill is Representative Parkinson and Senator Bell's bill.
Yeah, right.
And so it does appear to be by a different senator.
Well, I had a quick question that may be above our board here, but on page 2 in your iPads, 62-76-202, it has language about the high school diploma and the GED certificate, but it does not mention the high set. Is that automatically included with the GED, or is that an omission of language that they might need to look at?
Like, are you referring to Amendment Number 3 to Senate Bill 2458? There's nothing additional, so I would think that it would pass as it is drafted. The amendment would pass as it is drafted unless another amendment is adopted or another amendment is put forth.
I think that would have the effect of not being able to accept the high sets.
I couldn't speak to that because the language does seem broad, but without sitting and doing an actual analysis on this amendment, I couldn't speak to how broadly or narrowly it would be construed. It just say high school diploma or its equivalent, and then it says which shall include, but how it might be interpreted, I wouldn't be able to speak to that. It certainly doesn't have the language that you mentioned, which has historically been there, and so I think that's worth noting, but that's as far as I could go as far as interpreting it.
It just stood out when I saw it, so good. Questions? Comments?
If there's nothing else, thank you all, and that would conclude our legislative update at this time.
Thank you, Sherelle. We appreciate it.
Thank you. On your iPads, because we have a lot of pages on each of the applications, you are on page 70, and this is then moving on to our school applications. I'll give everybody a minute to get there, and we will continue. And I believe Ms. Charlton will be able to join us electronically. So you have before you Ms. Monica Carruthers. If you'll give me a second, let me make sure she's here. Make sure that I'll let him just You have before you an application for a new specialty school. This is a natural hair styling school. The name is Texture Tech Academy. Ms. Carruthers is appearing for you for any questions that you've got. This school is located in Memphis. It is 1,024 square feet. The business license, curriculum, blank contract, the 5 tentative contracts, floor plan, application, and the fee have all been received in the office timely.
Thank you for coming down today. We appreciate you being here.
Ms. Charlton?
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. Okay, so we have electronically Ms. Granger, Ms. Sappenfield, and Ms. Charlton joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your application, I see it says that students who are dismissed for not maintaining satisfactory academic progress. I see that language. Does it say anywhere in here where you identify what that requirement is? Is it a certain grade, an attendance average? I didn't see it in your contracts. Sure. I see it. I have found it on page 77. It is. It's in the attendance policy. Thank you.
Have the square footage of your space?
1,024.
How many instructors do you have? How many instructors will you have?
Only one.
Well, yeah, okay. And if you're out sick, you got somebody to back you up?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve this specialty school application. Do we have a second?
I second. Yvette Granger.
Ms. Granger.
We have a second by Ms. Granger. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Congratulations and good luck to you.
Thank you. This being a new school, we are having a board member inspect. Is that correct? Do you know when you'll be ready? Okay. I will make sure to have both a board member and a field inspector go. Thank you. Next on your iPads, you have Kingsport Academy of Hair. This is a change in school location. Miss Kathy Deacons. Okay. I'll let the board review the application for a change in location. We have the school application, the fee, and the big piece there is always the floor plan itself. If there are any concerns without them being present, we'd have to delay this to the next meeting, and I was not made aware that they wouldn't be able to make it. So I'll let you review it. That application starts on page 95, and they've got the floor plan with the 2 stories computerized, and then they had submitted some old hand-drawn plans as well. But we've been letting schools know, and I think this is part of our effort to always make schools be the best that they can be, that the floor plans need to be something that isn't hand-drawn so that it's easy for the board to determine if everything's there or not, if there's a concern with everything. And so I believe the plan on page 96 gives you what you need. They're located in Kingsport. I just think they moved to a bigger building.
And this is a cosmetology school.
It is a full cosmetology school, and they will be 2,600 square feet when you add the upstairs to the downstairs.
I'm only seeing like the 3 shampoo bowls. There's supposed to be 5. Other one upstairs or downstairs, I'm not seeing.
That's the drawback when they don't come in person. There's very little way
I'm
to.
overlooking, but do y'all see another shampoo area?
I see 5.
And back to back?
Yeah.
Oh, where am I?
There.
3.
Oh, yeah, 5.
Met with the nails and pedicure. Okay.
If the upstairs are just the classrooms.
I think I'm looking to see if there's any of the specialty equipment in the aesthetics, if that's a classroom upstairs.
Could be that those 2 drawings are the beds. It's been open since 2000. If the board sees any concerns, obviously we can delay it till May and make sure that they're here. However, if everything looks like it's in order, we can also make sure that a board member also inspects, whichever way you prefer going.
Improve with an inspection since they just weren't able to come today.
They are always approved that way. So if the inspection comes back with any concerns or any of the equipment not there, on occasion they will have ordered the equipment, have us go, and it's not there, and we have to come back. So it can't get approved if something is missing. So either way, that would be the situation.
Do we have a motion to approve with the inspection?
Motion to approve with inspection.
A second.
We have a motion that's properly seconded. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries.
Seconded. I apologize. Thank you, Amy. All right. And how does the board feel as far as normally when they've been open for a while, we've been doing inspections, just the field inspector? Would a board member also like to go, or?
I think a field inspector
Field
will be
inspector?
sufficient here.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you. Moving on, we're on our applicants to test. You have before you on page 100, this is an application for Nikisha Popeo. This applicant has a felony within the last 3 years or is currently incarcerated. The request is for them to be able to take the Tennessee examination, and the board does, unless there's a reason to ask for a greater length of time, we prepare an agreed order for them to agree to a 2-year probationary period, and that is sent to them. Once that is signed, we can process them to take the exams. I'll let you review her application.
Always a little hard to tell. Is she still incarcerated or is she out?
Based on this, it looks like April 2018. So, but it is hard. I mean, if anything goes wrong, they could add to your time. Generally speaking, we would assume that she could be able to already test outside instead of at the prison.
The only one we have with the felony?
Yes.
Make a motion that we approve her to test.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve for a test, and that's with the agreed order?
Yes,
Is that right?
sir.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 No. Motion
Aye.
carries.
Thank you. Next, we have an applicant to test. These are international applicants. This is an application to test as a manicurist with hours from Thailand for Ms. Pacheri Eisenberg. Is Ms. Eisenberg here? Ms. Eisenberg has provided an evaluation from Echo International verifying the documents. Those documents show a total of 1,296 hours in the coursework titled Beautician. She completed those hours in 2012. Mrs. Eisenberg and her husband submitted a letter. That letter is on page 106 for your review. They were hoping to be able to make it, but it wasn't going to be easy. So I have spoken to them a couple of times. They have made the decision to pursue the examination and the license for manicuring, and they explained their situation there. At the end of their analysis of what she's done in her country and what she wants to do, they believe that the simplest, fastest, and most cost-effective path for them right now, what she wants to pursue, is in manicuring. So if the board is okay with that, that's what we would submit her to do the exams in.
And we're making a motion for her to test
Yes.
for manicuring.
For manicuring of the board, she has 1,296 hours. So again, that's one of my main reasons why we asked for the documents to be evaluated with Echo International to make sure that everything was there. And it did include some hours that are over and above our traditional manicuring, but she felt she did not have enough in the hair and the skin, so she wanted to focus more on the manicuring.
I make a motion we allow her to test.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve for testing. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Motion
Aye.
carries.
Thank you. Next, we have an applicant to test as a cosmetologist with hours from Mexico for Mayra Araceli Seguro Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez has provided translated certified documents showing 1,700 hours were completed in March of 2011. She's asking for permission to test.
Motion that we approve her to test.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve for testing. Is there any other discussion? She's from Cordova High School, folks. All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you. We are on for our reciprocity applicants. We have only 3. So for those of you that have been with the board for a long time and remember when we present 45 or 50, big difference.
They did build a wall.
Nina. All right. Application for reciprocity of a cosmetology license. Cosmetology, a reciprocal applicant from Georgia for Cassandra Chapman. Ms. Chapman completed 1,400 hours in 2000 in California, but never obtained her license in that state. She moved to New York, and there she completed an additional hours. Unfortunately, she does not have proof of that transcript, and New York, as all of you know, only keeps records for 5 years. From there, she moved to Georgia, where she obtained a license in 2013. That license was active in the board office when it was received. It has since then expired. Our process with that, for the most part, is when we get it, that date counts because we start the evaluation. However, I will leave that at the discretion of the board as well. We had everything from her in March, and it was active. Obviously, right now, it is not. Her certification from New York has not been received yet, but she has provided an image of her license, and of course, it matches what we've seen. That license from New York expired in 2016. So at this point, we are still waiting on the certification from New York, but I'm confident that we could even, if needed, contact them ourselves and get it. Need to make sure that the board's comfortable with the license that just expired 9 days ago. And then more importantly, she doesn't, that 100 hours that if she completed in New York, and New York very likely asked for it because they've had 1,500 hours back then, she's asking for, obviously, to be approved as a reciprocity, not be sent back to school for the 100 hours. She is desperate to get back into the work force, which is why she asked to be presented today, even though we don't fully have the New York, so we wouldn't have to wait until May. So at this point, you've got everything I think that she has. And like I said, I can either confirm New York or it should be here any day now.
We can confirm her with the pending New York information.
Yes, we can. And again, on page 117, you actually see her license. The reason we always ask for every certificate, whether the license is active or not, if, and it hasn't happened, well, I take it back. We might have seen one situation like that. If the license is suspended or revoked, that's where we find out. So we still, whether we get it electronically or the director can send it to me or it's actually getting here, I'm not comfortable going any further until we have it.
Has she tested?
In New York, yes. So she would have tested and gotten her first license in New York in 2012, February of 2012, as you can see. And then she moved with that to Georgia. Georgia also licenses at 1,500 hours. So they very likely had enough information to license her. They did not have a retest. New York did. The good thing with New York certificate, even though they're only good for the 5 years and then we lose out on records, is they actually state the date of the exams. Even if they no longer have a lot of older history, we can tell when they tested. So if the board's okay with it, I'm comfortable recommending her for reciprocity as long as that New York certification comes in, because it's just 100 hours she would have been short either way.
Isn't New York only 1,000 hours?
Now it is. For barbers, it's even more interesting. For barbers, the school can determine the number of hours. So if a school determines that you only need 800 as a barber, because, and I don't understand that, but I've debated it, then they can put you through at 800 hours, and as long as you pass the exam, you're licensed. So it is 1,000, and I think that changed no more than a couple of years ago,
Yeah,
3 years
just a few
ago.
years back.
Yeah. So it's 1,000 all the way
I
around.
think it was only 1,200 prior, though. So.
Right. So for whatever reason, they had her do 100, but they don't have proof of that. And California is 1,600, so she didn't quite finish the curriculum in 1,600 when she moved to New York.
She's stating that she got her license at the Vidal Sassoon Academy in California. Was that validated?
No, I've not been able to validate her education, so we would be depending on the New York license. Again, this does look exactly like the New York licenses we see. They would have validated that in order to give her the license. Rarely do we go back to that beginning transcript. We did this time ask for it so that she wouldn't have to keep waiting and show us that extra 100. But I believe something in that certificate prompted New York to ask for the extra 100 hours.
Thank you.
So what if you don't get verification for the 100 hours?
It's likely that I won't for the 100 hours. What I really need is verification that the license in New York was issued due to 2 exams and was okay. I think if that's okay, we're taking her word for the 100 hours. That's all she would be short is the 100 hours.
Okay.
She's been licensed since 2012, so she would have the 5 years work history, but she's not been able to provide the work history. And at this point, that's where she put together the letter for you to review.
And the Georgia license was dependent on the New York license. And
Georgia didn't have her test or do anything extra.
Right.
They accept, which is identical to our licensure, if you will. She would have needed both exams.
We make a motion for her to have reciprocity upon getting the proper paperwork from New York. And if she does not, then maybe have a retest on both parts of the Tennessee State Board test. If she doesn't have those.
so we have a motion to approve reciprocity pending verified records from New York. Failing that, she would be required to take her tests.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology license from Pennsylvania for Amanda Hasinger. The certification shows an initial licensure in January of 2014 with 1,250 hours by examination. Ms. Hasinger has provided 3 separate letters from employers showing work experience for those past 4 years. So based on licensure, she doesn't have the 5 years that the board asks for. Her letter, give everybody time to take a look at it, is on page 122. She has the 2 exams. She's 250 hours short.
Possibly there's just, she had a typo in her application. It says that hours completed were 1,500.
Well, the only problem with that is without a transcript, Pennsylvania only does 1,250. So that's the drawback.
As a state, they
As a
require
state,
1250.
that
So
is
she
correct.
completed their program and has worked for 4 years.
Or for 4 years. Her application does say 1,500. That's what she's typed. They will only certify 1,250. So without proof of the transcript, that's kind of what we have to go by, is what the state will certify. But it is likely that she did. Many states allow you to do more, but we don't have proof of that. She's close on the work experience, Ms. Tank, so you're correct. Just not quite there.
Her application, of course, is for the cosmetology license, but her letter says that she worked in a mom and pop barber shop on different occasions for those years. So I don't know if that's a licensure. And a salon.
And from the letters, at least 2 of those letters are clearly barber shops. Now, again, not every state separates them. A lot of states see them as very closely knit. We see a little bit of everything. So this is a clear indication.
Need more information?
I'll make the motion that she be granted reciprocity.
We have a motion to approve reciprocity. Do we have a second?
Second that.
We have a second. Is there any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology license from Kansas for Yihai Min Wolf. The certification shows initial licensure in July of 2016 with 1,520 hours obtained in South Korea. She provided an evaluation report for the hours obtained, so we do know that 1,520 is accurate. Kansas only had her take the law exam, so it would be our equivalent of the rules and laws. But that's all we have. So at this point, I would recommend that she take the practical exam.
She's applying for cosmetologist.
She is, and it looks like Kansas verified the educational information, and we have it. The hours are right. If you would look on page 131 toward the middle under the licensure information, the procedure is out-of-state law license, law exam, so it looks like they just had her do the rules and laws.
It looks like this is an Army or a military reassignment. Are there special consideration given to this?
There are, so the board can grant her full reciprocity because of that. I mean, she's got an active license and it's good through July. So yes, you can.
She's got an active Kansas license.
Correct. That's what she's applying, and the reciprocity is substantially meets. So under substantially meets is where I believe every state looks at the full picture, and you all have done the same.
Motion to approve with reciprocity.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve for reciprocity on this candidate. Any questions or discussions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries.
Thank you. We are on to our miscellaneous applications. On your iPad, starting with page 134, this is a request for reconsideration for theory exam. Give me just a second, Mr. Mohammed. But that's read if you have any questions, okay?
Okay. Sure.
Page 134, and if you bear with me for a minute, I had it and then I tapped a different page. Okay. This is an application for a master barber license. You have on the following page a letter from with the board's approval from February 1st, 2017. Mr. Mohammed was approved at the January 30th board meeting to be able to take his barber exams with education in Tennessee completed in 2009, but there were issues with that, so the board reevaluated his out-of-the-country education and approved him to take the barber exams at that point. You have, after that, 2 documents from PSI in Tennessee showing the scores not quite being the 70% minimum score that we need. So Mr. Mohammed is here to answer any questions that you have. He has in the past had shops, and so at this point he's explaining that he would like to be able to work in the industry, obviously in barbering. He has a, correct me if I'm forgetting any of this, Mr. Mohammed, a cosmetology license in the state of Michigan, correct? And those exams have passing scores. Where the board has struggled a little bit with that is the exams in Michigan are allowed with interpreters, with a person that assists you, and in Tennessee, we've not moved in that direction. That is not approved. And so with that in mind, generally speaking, unless the individual has more than 5 years within the United States working at that state, then the 5 years experience doesn't come in, and we've asked them to take the exams. So he's now under a difficult situation because of the language barrier. He's not passing the theory exam. And the license in Michigan is in cosmetology, not in barbering. So that's something that if we've got a question, Sherelle can help us with, but it's not the same thing. And I know that he's wanting to go back to barbering, correct? Yes.
The language is an issue, even teaching the different languages. It's hard to make sure you're getting everything across to them like they need to be interpreted.
Which school did you go to? Well, no, don't tell me a school name. I won't ask that question.
Not end up accepting the education from Tennessee, if I'm correct. Is that correct? Your education that you went here, didn't we accept your school from out of the country? Yes, that's the route we ended up going.
For some reason I can't remember his case before. It's...
Do we have a score on the practical exam?
He cannot take the practical until he passes the theory.
That's
so
right.
We had a similar, and we've had this situation before. We've had a similar situation with his wife, as a matter of fact, and she struggled with the English. She passed the practical, I think, on the first round. The situation we have here is that he's tested, but it's a cosmetology exam in Michigan. It's not the barber exams. So it's not quite that simple. As Sherelle and I debated it, I don't know that the board has the authority to waive it. Now, if we did cosmetology.
So let me ask you this. If you did cosmetology and he got that, could he not perform 300? Yeah, but couldn't he still do men's hair under a dual licensed barbershop without the barber component to it, which would give him probably 90% of what he's looking for?
Right. So under a dually licensed shop, if your shop has the cosmetology shop license and a barber shop license, as long as you're licensed, right? As a cosmetologist, yes, he could. The situation the board may need to then readdress is his education as cosmetology, because his education from home is barbering, right? And again, there are not that many huge differences, but it's right now it is barbering that we've approved him for.
So what is our typical reciprocity from the state of Michigan with cosmetology? Because that would be the path
So they
we
have
would
the same
consider,
hours.
right?
So if you've got somebody with cosmetology with exams, we'd be fine. The situation we run into with Michigan is if it's a foreign language, they don't have the language in the translated like we've done here with the Spanish and Vietnamese. An interpreter assists in the exam.
But have we not passed that prior as far as a precedent when that was the only issue?
Yes, and
Right,
we have waived the theory. The issue is he's not applying for a cosmetology exam. He's applying for
But
barber.
I guess what I'm saying, if that's the easiest path of resistance for him to get most of what he wants, I mean, I don't think it's our job to recommend to him which way to go, but
Right, I agree.
think that would give him most of what he's looking for without
Except
walking
the-
away
except for the shaving.
empty-handed. Except for the shaving.
You got it.
When I look at
But
this,
then he can get 300 hours if he gets that license first and be able to do the shaving. So it's still probably the least path of resistance.
You have something to say?
Yeah, I have two business, one hair salon and the other one barber. So my wife, she's a stylist and she's working in this the salon.
I'm in the same situation. So I'm a barber. My wife is a cosmetologist, and we have both licenses in the same building.
I do, but I have another shop, just barber. So I want to just open this and be succeed in Nashville.
Right. But I'm hoping that you get something versus nothing. So that's why I'm having this conversation to try to set you up to get some success here. And that would be if yours, not your wife's, but if yours had both licenses, you could do most of what you want to do in your barbershop. If you chose to only do men's hair, that's your responsibility under the cosmetology rules. If you had a cosmetology license, then plan B would be you only have to then get 300 hours to be full-blown barber. If you get the cosmetology license,
Not study. I cannot go to school back. I'm with the army 7 years. Even my mind is not to go to take tests very hard, and I have a family. I cannot. I'm 52 years old. I cannot go back and study, and I have a lot of things. It's my mind is.
And that would bring him back to
school.
the exam. So I don't know that we'd be back to the theory exam.
Right. Just my recommendation of trying to get the guy
I think what
to go
Mr.
to work.
Gambus is saying that is worth you thinking about is if your shop is duly licensed, then you as a cosmetologist, if the board decided we could proceed that way and Sherelle says that we can, then as a cosmetologist, you could work in that duly licensed shop.
The salon now is just one license because we stopped the barber. That's all.
It would have to become duly licensed. What Mr. Gambus is saying is that would get you into a legal way to work in the shop.
This situation is not new to me. My family came from Italy and have similar situations. Sometimes you're better off getting part of what you need instead of nothing of what you're looking for. So that's kind of why I'm just recommending that. I'm not saying you won't get it, but I'm just trying to put myself in your position and try to get you to walk away with something. So it's just my recommendation only.
Let me ask a quick question so that we don't leave in limbo and we have everything kind of laid out for the best option. Your license in Michigan for cosmetology, how long ago did you get it? Okay. So we're back to square one as far as the board has always asked if it's a license that has been tested for with an interpreter and it's under 5 years. We've asked for the exam, so we're back to the exam.
And the education is in barbering?
No, the education is the traditional documents we accepted internationally were barbering. They're correct? You did a traditional barber education, which is why the board at the January meeting over a year ago was comfortable accepting those documents to the best that we could tell. That was his passion. That's what he wanted to do. So it is barbering. I don't know why Michigan approved cosmetology. Again, that each state is unique. They're looking at substantially meets. And so that we're in that dilemma.
Kind of muddies the water even more.
It does. I knew it fell outside of what I could do. Now, something that we've done is we've accepted applicants that can test in their language somewhere else as long as it's not an interpreter, a person testing. It's actually that exam translated into the target exam.
You had been in the military. Were you in the United
I
States
was with the
military?
military, yes, since 2004 to 2010.
Okay.
But the American military, or?
Yeah, I went with them from here to overseas.
Oh, okay.
Well, you seem like you're a very intelligent man. I see your scores here. I know that we have lots of people across the state who don't always perform well once or twice or even several times on the state board exams. I don't think you have any difficulty in comprehension. You've had a great conversation with us. For myself, I think I'd rather see you take that test because the things that you've done poorly, according to the scores that I see here, are the sanitation, disinfection, safety, those kind of things that licensing regulations, those kind of things that actually are really important to the public health. So for myself, if you're in the military, I'm sure you had to do lots of testing and things for the U.S. military. I think that's the way I would personally lean. So.
That's it. It's okay. I'm gonna stop doing this because I tried hard. I tried hard a lot, many times.
I just have one kind of question. Could you talk about why your license was granted as a cosmetology license in Michigan?
Also, I have studied overseas. I've been long time in this field, in barber and cosmetology since I was 18. So it's 31 years ago. This is my job.
So did you ask for a cosmetology license from Michigan? Okay.
This bit would be doing the dual shop, but he can't because of the years of experience.
We're back to our one. No,
Roxana, is there a state that offers the written test in Arabic? Is that what language you're talking about?
I think New York.
Without an interpreter?
New York might. New York has the most available exams. I've never looked at it personally. But.
If you can take the barber exam in another state in Arabic without an interpreter, we could accept that, correct? We could accept that as if it passes it.
We have accepted we've accepted a foreign language exam, and I think it was from New York. It was at least one was Chinese, if I'm not mistaken, to where the person went and took the exam in theory, and we accepted the score because we can't waive the exam.
So without licensure from that state?
Without licensure.
Strictly
They let that
test.
individual as a student. The school helped. We got involved, and she was able to take the exam. And then here we put her straight to the practical, and the practical was passed.
That's the best solution I see for you, is to take the written exam in Arabic in New York or another state that does not provide an interpreter. You can't have an interpreter with the test. And then you could come and take the practical. If you pass that passing score, we could accept it for you to take the practical exam here. Is that correct?
That's what it sounds like.
I can take the barber practical. I can pass.
Not till you pass the written. And you're going to have to do that without an interpreter.
Can I ask another question? In Michigan, did you go for a barber's license prior to a cosmetology license in Michigan because you came from your country with barbering experience? So,
I have for both experience. I have overseas is for both, for cosmetology and for barber.
Oh, okay. So why did you choose cosmetology in Michigan?
That time, my wife, she's not stylist, and the salon is very important for us to live. So I have kids, I have family, and I cannot go and. This is my business. How come, if cosmetology leave us, then we close? I don't want to be in this situation again.
Have you just recently moved to Tennessee?
I'm from Tennessee since 2006. I moved to Nebraska to here.
Your wife has got a license in cosmetology. You know, you can always open a salon and hire barbers to come in there. I mean, you can be an owner, but you got to have somebody over it. Anybody can own a salon.
What me?
You can own it, but you've got to have somebody that's licensed.
He already owns two.
He's got two of them. Okay.
Okay,
I
sure.
will say, I've been listening to this debate and looking at the law, and it does appear that because he is licensed in Michigan, he could potentially meet the reciprocity requirements if you all determine that he substantially meets Tennessee's qualifications. And I think because that application isn't before you all today, it can't be evaluated today. But I think if it were to be submitted, we would have to look at that closely and see if there was a possibility to allow him to come in through reciprocity as a cosmetologist. I know you all have taken certain actions in the past, and I think if he submitted such a application, it would give us the opportunity to analyze what the options are legally with that reciprocity application as a cosmetologist potentially. But since that's not before the board today, we can't really take a position on it one way or the other. But I think if it were, you all could potentially consider that, and legal would be prepared to advise on the board's options if he substantially meets the qualifications for Tennessee, because that is another route that he can take. Because he doesn't have the 5 years of licensure and work in Michigan.
I think what we're trying to say to you is that when you're asking for a barber license to be approved for a barber, that's not the credential that you're bringing to us that we could actually move on. So if we could have you apply.
Now, let me add to the cosmetology application. He has a cosmetology license, and Sherelle's 100% right. That's what we'd evaluate. He has 3 years of a cosmetology license. What the board has done when it's less than 5 years, within, just like we do with our international applicants that we just approved, the 5 years hasn't been met, and so that's where we always ask for the exams. It has to do with not having had the 5 years that the board stays with the exam being needed. So he'd be back to taking the exams for cosmetology instead of barbering. Just to add that.
So what if if he came with his international license? So he would have 5 years, right? Could it not be looked at that way, or does that get superseded?
You all haven't, but you could. I mean, remember
I'm just trying to find a
reciprocity.
potential avenue that is within legal.
Well, because most international education doesn't include licensure as we see it. So that's kind of the reason that our international applicants, we accept their hours, because the thought has always been for the board, they shouldn't have to go back to school, that financial burden, that you can't work. So the exams are how you all have safeguarded the public.
Apparently that's what we did when his application was submitted over a year ago with international hours. Correct?
So we can't use the 5 years from international.
We haven't to this date because it isn't licensure. The statute is reciprocity is considered for anyone in the United States, U.S. territory that substantially meets. And so we've always looked at that substantially meets to welcome and help people get to work. But the thought with the international, because the exams vary so much or aren't there at all, is the board has put them through the test to safeguard the public.
What have we done in the past with applicants with the language issue?
We've put them through the test to see if there's a struggle. And in many cases, unfortunately, there is a struggle with the language. We've approved at least 2. I'm thinking of a young lady not too long ago that with the Chinese that did, the school knew offhand because she actually went to school to get refresher to prepare for the exam. And they said, the theory she's going to struggle with, but she is amazing. And so she took the exam in New York in Chinese and was able to bring it in. The board
did go through that avenue, and it was successful.
Yes.
I just don't recall that many of these coming to
We
our
haven't
attention.
had that many. Right. And some are right close to the 5 years. I mean, it's. I think that was the situation. And your wife went to school in Tennessee, did she not? She went to school here in Tennessee. She still struggled with the language and then came close and had a different language that she was able to bring exam.
I think what is key here is that he does currently have a valid Michigan license, and so what would have to happen is an application would have to be submitted for reciprocity as a cosmetologist, and then the question would be before you all whether or not he substantially meets Tennessee's qualifications or not. And I understand from our discussions here today that historically there have been some policy positions taken on such things. However, I think we would have to take a look at it if such an application came in and make sure those positions do align with the laws and rules as they're currently drafted.
Isn't that what he did last year? Submitted an application for reciprocity? He's already done that.
For Barber.
And we said,
so
you need to take the test.
Well, I'm hearing that this gentleman might have two options. The first would be to reapply using the active Michigan cosmetology license to become an active Tennessee cosmetologist, option one, since Michigan is still an active license. Or to take the test elsewhere if he doesn't feel like he can pass it in English in another state, in another language, and we would accept that if he would choose to move forward with barbering. Are those the two options? Or
say choose to accept it, choose to consider it for reciprocity, right? Not to accept it.
The written exam
Right.
from another state, yes. That would offer another language, since we don't offer as many languages as other states.
I'm not aware of anywhere in the law where an individual could take another state's examinations and use those examinations to qualify for licensure in Tennessee. We do have reciprocity, which is when somebody holds a valid license or they practice 5 years continuously in another jurisdiction lawfully. And then we have the situation where somebody has obtained their professional education and we allow that education to qualify them to take Tennessee's examinations. I'm not aware of any mechanism that would allow someone to take another state's examinations and qualify for Tennessee licensure. And so,
That was my question.
So that's not an option.
Yeah, that's my question earlier. You take it in that state so you can pass it, get the licensure in that state, and then that's for reciprocity from that state.
That's correct, Frank. It would have to be a situation where the examinations are taken in another state, licensure is obtained in that state, and then you all would look at that as a reciprocity application.
So the item before us is to whether or not to grant reciprocity based on this application for a master barber license.
And he has completed the cosmetology application. I mean, right? You did it online because he's kind of, when he wasn't passing, I believe, just tried to go on the system and apply for it and bring it before us to look at the full picture. You don't have the application before you, but it is an active Michigan license. It is in 5 years. They've accepted the same education you have. It's cosmetology license, not a barber license. So then you'd need to decide, or we can represent it in May, are you going to reevaluate his education in barbering and accept it for cosmetology? Or just not worry about that piece and accept reciprocity with 3 years licensure?
Well, would this be an acceptable legal position if we were to deny this request for reciprocity for a master barber and approve him for reciprocity based on this application that he is about to complete with Roxana, or has completed? It just isn't on our list yet. Presuming that it is complete with essentially simply the name change of the program.
I think the board would actually need to have that cosmetology application and the qualifications in front of it to evaluate it. But I do think that if he wants to proceed in that way, that it should certainly be represented to you all in that way, and you all look at the qualifications and make a decision at that particular time, because it's kind of unclear, and this isn't exactly a standard scenario that we're reviewing right now. And I think just to protect the public and to protect the board, it would be best if you all had that documentation in front of you when you make that decision.
We always want to help folks get to work and to get to be legal and do things correctly, and that's what we've really been trying to debate here: is if there's an option and a way for us to help you to get to where you need to be. So I just want to say that to you, because I know sometimes people on your side of the fence feel like, well, maybe we're trying to hold you back or we're not sympathetic to you. We certainly are, but we do have a job that we have to do to protect the public. Okay, so
I have a question for Mr. Muhammad. Do you want a Tennessee cosmetology license?
Both of them. Even if there is no barber, no cosmetology, find anything for
Oh,
me. Just to put
okay,
me
I
work.
just didn't think
I-
you were even interested.
Are not gonna let me work. I'm gonna do volunteer for homeless. I want to work. I want to work.
Want you
This
to
is
work.
really.
Want you to work.
Why I'm
want you to work.
struggling?
I mean, for context, sir, I had an employee who took the cosmetology license, I think, 6 times and failed 5 times and finally passed on her 6th try. And there wasn't anything this board could do other than keep encouraging her to test, and that's what we did. And so I understand where you're coming from, and I want to be able to do this, but I don't think we can just move you forward without discussing it. Unless you want to test like 8 more times and come back and we can talk then.
I can.
Right. So, but there's a balance.
But if he gets his paperwork in and it gets verified, and
him
then
on-
come
get
back
him on for next month,
with
right?
it, get the paperwork in to Ms. Roxana.
Before we do that, we need to have a motion, I believe, on this application. Do we have a motion
What is the motion, Ron? I'm sorry.
Application?
on this application for reciprocity? We would need a motion.
Actually, we don't have an application.
His request was to reconsider the theory exam, and so it is sounding like the motion would be that you're not accepting that. He would be coming back to the board in May with a full cosmetology application, and then at that point, I think we'll need to review the education and present that to you.
And work
to
experience.
decide. And work experience, okay.
We would need a motion to deny this request.
Make a motion to deny the request.
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay. Those are so hard.
So I have that we want to look at the qualifications, meaning the education, work experience as well, and it will
Yes.
be under 5 years, but we'll present as much as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have under our miscellaneous still this is a revoked license, if you will, on your iPads. We're on page 139. It's a request for approval of a manicurist license for Juan Min Dong. Mr. Dong was licensed by Reciprocity from Texas. In 2013, that license was revoked for failure to obtain the licensure through the state statute. Since then, he has attended a school in the Memphis area and passed both exams. You have on your iPads the theory exam, and the practical was passed with a score of 94 on February of 2018. Because of the distance, he was not able to appear before the board. We generally request anyone in this situation appear to answer any questions, but for the most part, the board has approved the licensure once they've completed education and passed here.
It is citation, right?
Pardon me?
You paid the citation.
Oh, yes, the case has been closed. Well, the license was revoked.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have a request from an instructor. This is a request for an extension of the continuing education for Ms. Elizabeth Smith. On March 11th and 12th of this year, Ms. Smith attended the approved continuing education session in Old Hickory. She had a family emergency come up and she had to leave that session. This meant that she only completed 11.5 of the required 16 hours. Her letter is on page 144. I will give the board time to review it to make a decision of what she can do. She does have a few options. These emergencies on occasion have come up. I believe her interest is to do the remaining hours with Mr. Thomas. His next session is in Jackson. Is that correct?
Oh, when is that?
His session is this year in June, I think. I think it's June.
We're just giving her a waiver until June.
Right. She wants to obviously continue teaching, and so we would be giving her that extension until she can complete the session. Obviously, if she attended a different session prior to that, she'd submit it and we'd be fine. But if not, I believe he's going to take into account her situation and possibly not charge her, whatever they've been able to work out. Sometimes we extend for the entire year. Other times we've extended just until the person has the next session.
I won't vote on this because I was at that session, but she had an emergency and had to leave. She'd been there for, I believe, one day or part of the session and was called away. But because I think her license was set to expire in March due to the online situation.
Life happened.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to grant the extension.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the extension. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries.
Thank you. I will turn it over again to Ms. Pamela Spicer. This is regarding needing to vote the official complaint committee report from this morning.
Good morning, everyone. We met this morning and the committee approved the legal report that's before you today. If the full board does not have any questions, I would ask that that be approved.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the legal committee. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
That was the legal committee. Do we want to do the financial report or the new business?
Absolutely no. I think we can go on to your iPads. That's on page 150, the financial report. Everything is tracking about as we've expected. We are, because of the small price increase in the renewals and new licenses, we're slowly seeing each month go up just a little bit. Nothing that leads us to believe that we're going to have too much money at any point. The financials in front of you show that by the end of the financials for February, the board has in excess of $166,167 for all of this fiscal year. So that will include 4 more months still pending, and that's what we've got there. Then on new business, which is the last item that I've got before you, the 2018 Continuing Education Board attendance has been reviewed. We normally have just passed it around and everybody signed up. This particular time, I am asking for a motion to approve it just because we have more sessions than usual. One reason, and the second reason is so that every session could be attended. We do have a board member traveling that will incur travel to see the second blueprint to your student session offered, and that is in Johnson City. So I hit the wrong city. So if it's okay with the board, the completed form has been filled out. I think we will have an attendance at every session. We have the one in September split between Ms. Sappenfield and Ms. Granger. We did the same thing for the one in Old Hickory, and I think it worked out very well. Sometimes it's hard for a board member to attend the 2 days. So at the end of the day, it's just important, I think, for the board to have and, see how it went. And if either or both of you want to give us feedback on the first session, that would be great.
I thought that he did a really great job. He kept the instructors very on point with everything. Had some activities for them. That he wasn't just that boring. Everybody really seemed to enjoy speaking. I thought he did a very good presentation.
Thomas
did.
Yeah,
Yes, he was good.
several people just voluntarily said to me that they were really enjoying it, that they were getting a lot out of it, and everybody was just tuned in, and I think he did a great job. It was his first one, and yeah, I was really pleased, and great comments so far, just verbally. I haven't seen
all the comments came in, the evaluations, they were wonderful.
Oh, good.
They really were. Everybody was positive, so I think this is a great thing. And again, because of the unique situation of needing additional travel and the splits, if I could have a motion to approve it as everyone has signed up for.
Will you email this out then to us?
I did already, but I will again. Yes.
Sorry.
No problem. That's the best way to know where we're supposed to be, so email it.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Brenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no.
I apologize. Who seconded that motion?
Ms. Brenda.
Thank you, Brenda. Okay.
I need to know which one, if any, I'm going to, because
We signed you
they
up
were
for all of them.
they were all taken by the time it came to
TSU
me.
in August.
Which one?
You could split that one in Knoxville if y'all wanted to.
We signed you up for all of them,
Split,
Kelly.
yeah, you can
I
split.
know.
If
I'm
Frank wants to
teasing.
split. So
Yeah.
you and her could split that one
Your
in
name's on
Knoxville.
there with Frank.
Quick question on the legal report. We have
Yes.
Patricia doing the motion. Who seconded the approving? Amy. Thank you very much. Okay.
Sorry, I must not be very
No,
loud today.
I was distracted, so I apologize. That's on me.
That's okay.
I don't think we have anything else.
What is this? Do we need to talk about this?
Oh, yes.
What is this?
As urgent?
Our legal.
That's something you're going to get via individual emails, but that is just a hard copy for you all to review and sign related to some ongoing litigation matters. And Kelly, you weren't here, I think, when I initially passed it out, so I'll make sure you get a copy.
Yes, I was looking for a parking spot for 15 minutes.
I'm very, very sorry to
We
hear
understand.
that. We totally understand, but I'll make sure you get a hard copy as well. And if you want to review and sign those today, you can. And if you want to take them home and review them and fax or scan email them back, that's fine too. Thank you.
Take just a minute to thank all of our legal folks and Miss Betty and all the staff upstairs. We appreciate all the hard work you guys do, Roxana. For our students in our schools, thank y'all for coming. It makes me feel good as a school owner to see young folks becoming involved in our industry, and I wish you much success out there. Keep your head in the game and stay after it. Listen to your instructors. Is there anything else come before the board?
Nope.
Motion to adjourn.
We
Second.
have a motion to adjourn, properly seconded by Mr. Frank Gambuza. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're adjourned.
11:30.
Analyze.
Oh, Ms. Steppenfield, thank you, and Ms. Charlton, thank you.
Nice work, Ron.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Wonderful.